Hi there, my name is Cody Gardner. I'm a student learning German at Emory University, and today I'm going to construct a tutorial for you guys for how to differentiate Nach, Nachdem, and Nachher. So first I'm going to go over some of the objectives of my tutorial. Uh, the first one and most foremost being that I'm going to attempt to differentiate the situational uses for Nach, Nachdem, and Nachher when using the mean after. And while each of these words can have other situational uses as well, what trips up foreign speakers the most is when they're meant to be used as after. Secondly, I'm going to teach how substituting each of these words in a given sentence can change its meaning. And lastly, I'm going to advise you guys on what some common mistakes are regarding this topic and how to avoid them. So next I'm going to go over some examples before we dive into the meanings of each word. So for nach, wir gehen nach dem Essen ins Kino, which means we're going to the movies after the meal. For Nachdem, an example would be, nachdem sie Eis gegessen hatten, gingen sie weiter ins Stadion. After they ate ice cream, they went to the stadium. And lastly, for nachher, wir gehen nachher laufen. I'm going walking afterwards. So firstly, I'm going to start off with how to use nach to mean after. This word is a preposition as opposed to the uses of the other two. And in this circumstance, it is to show spatial or temporal relationships. So another example using nach would be, wir gehen Viertel nach 7 ins Stadion, which means we're going quarter after 7 into the stadium. Secondly, we have nachdem. This is a subordinating conjunction, and it is used to indicate that a past event has occurred after another. An example of this would be, nachdem wir in den Laden gegangen sind, gingen wir zur Musikhalle. We should also remember that nachdem is used to introduce a dependent clause. And lastly, nachher. This is an adverb as opposed to the previous two, which have been subordinating conjunctions and not and preposition, and is used to indicate that an event occurs after another action or event. The example of this is, zuerst sind sie zum Bahnhof gegangen und nachher mit dem Zug gereist. We should also remember that when using nachher, the verb will come in the second position. So examples of how you can formulate the same idea using nach, nachdem, and nachher. So we're going to use the English sentence, after they had napped, they went to the school. And using nach, an example would be, nach dem Mittagsschlaf sind sie zur Schule gegangen, which means after the midday nap did they go to school. Using nachdem, example would be, nachdem sie geschlafen hatten, gingen sie zur Schule, which means after they had taken their midday naps, they went to school. And lastly, for nachher, zuerst hatten sie geschlafen und nachher gingen sie zur Schule. First they slept, and then afterwards they went to school. So some quick tips and common mistakes to avoid when using nach, nachdem, and nachher. Remember that nach always comes before a noun. You can formulate the same idea using nach, nachdem, and nachher in different ways, which we just expressed in the previous slide. Remember that nachdem introduces a dependent clause. And lastly, if you begin a sentence with nachher, the verb must come in the second position. So quick review. Nach is a preposition that is most often used to show spatial or temporal relationships, while nachdem is a subordinating conjunction used to indicate one event has occurred after another. And lastly, nachher is an adverb used to express when something has occurred after a completed action or event. So lastly, we're going to have some quizzes to see what you guys got out of my tutorial. So for the first part of it, I'm going to ask you guys to formulate sentences for the following phrase. And the first example will be using nach. The second example, I want you guys to use nachdem. And the third, I'll ask you to use nachher. So the English sentence is, they went to church and after they had lunch. So first I'm going to ask for an example using Nach. An example would be, nach dem Gottesdienst sind sie zum Mittagessen gegangen. There could be various ways to construct these different types of examples, but here's just one common one that you could use. An example using nachdem. Nachdem sie den Gottesdienst besucht hatten, sind sie zum Mittagessen gegangen. Notice that when using nachdem, you're introducing the dependent clause. And for nachher, hopefully you got an answer similar to zuerst haben sie den Gottesdienst besucht und nachher sind sie zum Mittagessen gegangen. Which means first they went to the church services and afterwards they went to lunch. So for the second section of my quiz, I'm going to ask you to correctly translate the following English sentence 3 separate times. For the first one, after the game, the students have to study. Examples are, nach dem Spielen müssen die Studenten lernen. B, nach dem Spiel müssen die Studenten lernen. And C, nachher Spiel müssen die Studenten lernen. The answer here is B. We can realize this as Spiel or game is a noun, so a preposition must come before it, and we know that nach is in fact a preposition. Secondly, the English sentence will be, after Robert slept, he went to the soccer game. And the choices are A, nachdem Robert geschlafen hatte, ging er zum Fußballspiel. B, nach Robert geschlafen hatte, ging er zum Fußballspiel. And C, nachher Robert geschlafen hatte, ging er zum Fußballspiel. The answer here is A, nachdem Robert geschlafen hatte, ging er zum Fußballspiel. And as the word here, nachdem, is introducing the dependent clause, we can realize that nachdem Robert geschlafen hatte, ging er zum Fußballspiel is the answer. For the last question of the quiz, which of the following is the correct translation of the English sentence, they bathed and afterwards they went to school? A, sie haben sich gebadet und nachdem sind sie weiter zur Schule gegangen. B, sie haben sich gebadet und nachher sind sie weiter zur Schule gegangen. And C, sie haben sich gebadet und nach sind sie weiter zur Schule gegangen. The answer here is B. Sie haben sich gebadet und nachher sind sie weiter zur Schule gegangen. So they bathed and then afterwards they went on to school. So if you have any questions regarding this topic, some additional resources you can use are listed below. Marathonsprachen.com is a good way to further differentiate the uses if you have any questions that haven't been answered by my tutorial. And Quizlet is a resource that you can use if you want to continue testing yourself on this topic. Danke. Tschüss.